Thank you for having me today. My name is William, and today I'll be talking about combining art and science. What is 3D biomedical animation? So before I start, let me first ask you a question. How many of you have seen this type of illustration during the pandemic? You can raise your hands if you have ever seen anything like this in the past 5 years. Great, I'm seeing a lot of hands. And next one. How many of you have seen this type of illustration during the pandemic? You can also raise your hands if you have seen anything like this. Okay, I'm seeing fewer hands. So what you're seeing here are two types of medical illustration. The one on the left is a 2D illustration. It shows how a mask can help stop the spread of virus, and it was widely used in a lot of public health campaigns during the pandemic. And what you're seeing on the right is a clip from a 3D animation. What it shows is how a virus enters a human cell and replicates itself. So instead of using abstract and simple line drawings, the 3D animation uses a closer to reality simulation and thus provides a much more realistic and detailed representation of what really happened inside the human body. So both of these two examples falls under the realm of biomedical communication, which is a rising discipline in the medical field and also the topic of my talk today. So you're probably going to wonder, 2D illustrations are pretty easy to understand because we can literally see them everywhere. In school, on textbook, and even in a restaurant. But why haven't we seen more 3D animation? Well, the answer is simple, because it's very hard to make them. So what exactly is a 3D biomedical animation? And how do you make a 3D biomedical animation? So before I get into it, let me first take a step back and share with you a little bit of my journey of becoming a science animation producer. So I studied film in college, and like many of my peers, when it was time for me to look for a job, I hit a wall. It was in 2022, a very tough year for job seekers. I found myself completely lost. I guess we all have those control-C moments in our life, right? The moments we just want to go back in time and undo things. For me, it was in 2022 when I started to regret my decision of study film in college rather than something more concrete like coding. So I started to question myself and wonder if I made a mistake. So it was in the middle of that uncertainty I came across something unexpected. I found a job in biomedical communication. At first, I have no idea what this job entailed or even if I could do it well. But I remember it was a time when the pandemic got really serious and the need to convey science knowledge to the public became more urgent than ever. So with a background in film education, with a background in film, and also as a secret sci-fi film lover, I couldn't resist the idea of blending art and science to create something meaningful to the society. So 2 years ago, I took a leap of faith. When I first started, the first question I need to solve probably the same one that is bugging all of you right now, which is, what exactly is the 3D biomedical animation and what exactly is biomedical communication? So I did some research and I found out that biomedical communication is a subfield under the broad umbrella of science communication. It employs a variety of media and creative technologies to deliver science knowledge to the public. You can use infographic, 2D animation, 3D animation, or even more immersive technologies like virtual reality or augmented reality to deliver the science with the world. The goal is to break down the information barriers between the scientists and the normal people, to transform obscure science knowledge to something that everyone can understand. Among all these tools, 3D animation is becoming increasingly important because of its realistic representation. Sometimes it can help a patient to better see what really happened inside their body and thus help them make more informed decisions about themselves. Other times, it can help drug companies to better demonstrate the values of their medical innovations when they are pitching to the investors, when they are doing fundraising. So in simpler terms, biomedical communication is where you combine arts, science, and technology to better communicate life science knowledge to the public. And 3D animation does this by utilizing 3D software and tools to make that knowledge not only accessible, but also captivating to look at. So how do you make a 3D biomedical animation? Just like making a film, the entire process consists of 3 stages. You have pre-production, production, and post-production. And within each stage, there are a few smaller steps. In pre-production, you write scripts, produce storyboards, and in production, you handle 3D modeling, rigging, animatics, and animation. And finally, in post-production, you add visual effects, sound effects, and finally rendering. So for every project, I started the process by learning the science myself, and then I wrote a script to determine how we are going to explain the science in a way that everyone can understand. But biology is just inherently very difficult to learn, right? It just has so many complex details. So we need something more than just the text. Over the time, I realized that visualization is the key. To help the audience see the science with their naked eyes is what makes 3D biomedical animation works. We don't just explain biology, we need to show it. So here's a project on bone formation and destruction mechanism that we did a while ago. Let me walk you through the process again to show you how we make a biomedical animation and also why visualization is so important to the process. So at the beginning, like I just mentioned, the first step I do is to learn the science myself, and then I will write a script to determine the film's length and content. And after this step, the next thing I do is to draw some visual storyboards to help our 3D animator to really understand what is happening inside the human body. At this stage, what I'm doing is to find the right look for the biological objects for the animator, and also to design how they will interact with each other according to their biological mechanism. And sometimes I also design the environment for these characters, sort of like the set design you would do when you are preparing for making a film. So this is the step where you combine art and science. This is a step where I'm essentially casting the biological objects as the actor and choreographing how they were playing with each other in the film set that I designed. After we finish pre-production, we enter production. At this stage, the 3D animator will conduct most part of the work in the 3D software tools. What I will be doing at this stage is to make creative decisions, such as how we should move the camera, what angle should we give to this character, and what color and ambience do we want for this environment. So as you can see, the entire process from script to storyboard, from storyboard to the final film, the entire process is a process about continuous visualization. To visualize the science in a way that everyone can see with their naked eyes is what makes 3D animation so powerful. So making an animation is all about visualization. So is making a film, right? When you're making a film, you also need to write a script, visualize it in a storyboard, and then you conduct filming and editing, eventually turn your ideas into the movie image that you present to the audience on a big screen. So it was at this stage, I realized that my film education did not go wasted at all. As a matter of fact, it has helped me tremendously in helping solving the visualization challenge of making a 3D biomedical animation. So after producing a dozen projects, I realized that biomedical communication or science communication extends far beyond business application. Using the two illustrations at the beginning as example, the 3D animation has helped many people to understand the need of wearing masks during the pandemic. And the 3D animation, with its much more vivid representation of how a virus enters a human cell, creates much stronger psychological effects, and thus prompt a lot of people learn to protect themselves. And apart from these two, there's also 3D animation on how vaccine works. This type of animation will show you what kind of vaccine you can get and how they will work in your body. So it has tremendously helped a lot of people elevate the safety concern around getting vaccinated. And as a matter of fact, the industry is increasingly exploring other more informative, more immersive technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality to better enhance their communication with the public. These technologies not only allow audience to see the science themselves, but also allow them to play with the science in action, thus providing a much more effective way of learning. I'm also exploring this technology in my free time, and with my background in film, I'm able to quickly identify the strengths and drawbacks of these different media. And I can figure out how I should allocate these different media for different purposes and occasions when I'm communicating science to the public. So looking back, I've never imagined myself working in the science communication industry. But in hindsight, I think the signs were there all along. I've always been interested in sci-fi films where that blends art and science so beautifully, and I'm always curious about learning the technologies behind how a film is made. So as far as I see it, science and art should never be separated because true greatness requires both art and science. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of scientists actually got their inspirations from art, or even from watching movies. So reflecting on the past 2 years, what I've learned is that everything you take matters in shaping who you are today. So in my opinion, Control C is never about throwing away past actions. It is about taking one step back, evaluating what you have achieved, and really thinking clearly about what you're going to do next. When you're writing on a computer, Control C is never about throwing away what you have written, right? It is about taking a step back, reflecting, and moving forward with a much clearer vision. So in my opinion, Control C is not undoing things. It is about learning from your past actions and using those lessons to shape what comes next. So if I can leave you with one message today, it would be this. Everything you lose is a step you take, and every step you take matters to who you are made. So stay curious, stay exploring. Thank you. Thank you so much.